Hello everyone and welcome to NBL Now. It's Wednesday morning, which means round 3 begins tomorrow night. And you know what? We hear from us analysts, we hear from commentators non-stop. So I've decided to switch it up. And I thought we need to bring some players in for a special episode of NBL Now. Let's get the players' view. And I thought, you know what? If we're going to start with that, let's start with the best. And Bryce Cotton joins me on NBL Now. Bryce, welcome to the media side, mate.
Yeah, new territory for me, but it's good to be here now that I got you running along my side.
You have mentioned before that you're interested in media stuff at some point, whether it's post-career, whether it's during career. So we're just going to test the waters a little bit of this, and I think it'll be pretty good.
Yeah, we're going to see how we go. First time for everything, right?
Well, there's plenty of storylines heading into round 3, no doubt. But let's start with the Perth Wildcats. 1-1 to begin the season, a close loss to the Sydney Kings. How do you see things so far with Perth?
Yeah, I like the way we're starting the season so far. I think with the Sydney game, it's kind of one of those weird ones where it's like, you know, when we started the game, it's like we couldn't have played worse with how sloppy we were with turnovers and just bringing the energy. And then the second half, we played terrific like we know how, and we played good enough to give ourselves a chance to win. So I'm not a moral victory guy, but it was hard to ignore the silver linings there. And I like that. You know, obviously Sydney, they're a very talented team, but I like what we showed, and we could have easily folded and we didn't. So we just got to make sure we stay consistent, build on that, and iron out the kinks.
It was JR after round 1 who was in the press conference and had some great quotes about the Sydney Kings, saying it would be good to win the jump ball with how much talent they've got. When your coach is talking about that and all the media hype about the Sydney Kings, to get one of those tests early, I'm sure is a good thing for the team.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think we won the jump ball either on that note, but it's definitely good. You know, obviously all the teams are trying to figure out who they are early in the season. And I kind of think that's why the first month of the season is the most important, because those games that you win or lose usually end up dictating whether you're going to make playoffs or what type of seeding you're going to have. So this is the most important part of the year, even though it's, you know, the freshest.
Let's talk about that, because there are some teams that are off to a slow start. Southeast Melbourne play tomorrow night against Adelaide, both currently winless. Southeast Melbourne, if they lose that game, will be 0-4, and no team has ever made the finals if they begin 0-4. You've been on some teams that have got off to slow starts. When the outside noise is there, when you know what's coming, the pressure of just getting the first win, how do you kind of put it all together? Do you just block out the noise, or how do you try and really come together and say, look, let's just go one game at a time?
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, you block it out, but you know it's going to be there, whether you pay attention to it or not. So that almost kind of takes away some pressure if you're not looking to see what people are saying. And then it can't get any worse, right? If you haven't got on the wins column. So you just focus on, okay, if we do get one win, we have the momentum, and then we build on that. So it's kind of blocking it out, if that makes sense, but also staying in the moment, knowing all it takes is one win to give you the momentum you need to feel like you can turn your season around.
And we talk about Southeast Melbourne specifically. You played them in the first game. We see all the talent there, and it's easy to just look at the winless side of the ladder and say, look, they haven't won, but many expecting the Wildcats to be a top 4 team. They played Melbourne United. Everyone's expected to be tough, and then New Zealand's a tough road trip. So it's a tough way to start the season, but also, as you said, those tests can help shape things once you turn it around.
It is, and I think it goes both sides of the coin. No matter who's starting well to begin the season or who's, you know, playing pretty badly as a team, it doesn't really matter. Everybody's figuring out their kinks, and especially like a team like Phoenix, right? Like, they haven't got off to the best start, but they have almost a completely brand new team, and, you know, I don't think they played that many preseason games, so like that's pretty hard to, you know, figure out who you are right away. But with the talent they have, once they do figure that out, you know, they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. So I wouldn't really be worried about that team. They'll figure it out.
I mentioned this on NBL Overtime last night, actually, the same thing about the preseason games. When you've got a completely new squad, they've got 9 new faces, 8 of them in the rotation, the whole starting unit. Even Brisbane's got a lot of new faces, New Zealand, basically an entire new team. How important is it for a team like that to really have a big, I don't know whether it's long, but important preseason compared to one like the Perth Wildcats where you're just adding a couple of players?
I mean, yeah, it's very important if you don't have that continuity going into a year. The more preseason the games, the more preseason games, the better from that aspect. Just because guys have a chance to, I guess, build up that chemistry. But it varies from team to team. I'm not the biggest fan of playing too many preseason games, but also to our advantage, we almost brought back, the entire team. So it just kind of depends what you're working with. But from a Phoenix standpoint, the more games, the better, I would say.
They could have used the trip to Japan with you guys as well. You played a lot of preseason games now that I remember correctly. We've seen every team now, multiple games leading into round 3. Give me a new player in the league you've been impressed with the most and why.
So new to the league, I would say Montrez. He's not new to me, but he's new to the league. We played in the Big East together, and just to see how the impact he still has on the game, whether he's putting points on the board or whether it's a blocked shot or a big hustle play, it's like some things just don't change with him. And I think that energy that he has is contagious, and I think his teammates will feed off of it. And when you have a guy like that who's dynamic, where they can impact the game without scoring, but still have the ability to get you 20 points too any given night, that's a player that catches my eye for sure.
Well, what was it like when that signing got announced for you, who's had that past history, and someone who I'm sure you've been telling everyone back home, like, you want to get back to the NBA, you want to get to the NBA, you want to do all of this. We're one of the best leagues in the world, and then Montrezl Harrell pops up on your phone, or did you know beforehand?
I definitely didn't know. I'm probably one of the last people to find out anything that goes on in this league, but when I heard that he signed, I was like, wow, it's a pretty big signing, and he's a Big East guy. I'm a Big East guy, so it's always love for anybody from the Big East when they come in this league.
You weren't on the wrong side of it at Hoops Fest. It was the last game they were playing the Sydney Kings, and there was a moment where it's been figured out now, but he got told to calm down from the crowd, and everybody immediately said, but Bryce Cotton was doing it 2 nights ago, and he was getting the crowd wild up. Were you worried there for a little bit, like, hang on, I like getting the crowd involved here?
Yeah, it's not even a conscious thing. It's just something, you naturally do, and you're feeling in the moment. And, for us, at the Hoops Fest, that's a home game for us anyway. We're playing in front of our fans. So, that kind of helps you feel a little bit more easy interacting with the fans, I guess.
Now, from Montrezl, who's been unbelievable since he touched down for the Adelaide 36ers, and hopefully we see him all season long, but the better he plays, the more I get worried about that. Then an NBA team will come calling. Some other new players around the league, the heat gets turned up when they have slow starts, when they are key pieces. And we spoke on NBL Overtime last night and on the weekend. James Bateman is one of the news for the Bullets who they need to fire. He's coming off a massive resume in Europe, and especially in Israel, all Israel's second team. Why do you think that some players take a little longer to adapt to the NBL compared to a guy like Montrezl who just comes in and has a big impact straight away?
Well, for one, I think the style of play with the NBL is mirrored a little bit more closely to the style of play in the NBA, like very fast pace. I don't want to say one-on-one oriented, but if you have those abilities, you have a better chance to showcase that in this league. Whereas other guys, basketball's so global now, they play basketball differently depending on where you are. So a European style of play is completely different from here or America. And especially if a guy's been playing over there for years, he's used to that style. So it's going to be a small adjustment period, but it goes the same way where there might be some guys that play tremendous over here for a few years, and maybe they try to go to Europe or China or wherever, and then they struggle there for a little bit because it's all about adjustments. Nobody plays the style of basketball the same way anywhere in the world.
And the NBL, as you mentioned, as close to the NBA as possible. I think that it's on par with the speed, the pace of play, and that's improved even greater since you first touched down with the NBL. Do you like that? Do you like that we're getting to that NBA style in terms of pace of play, the highlight plays? I know we don't want to get too isolation orientated, but I don't think any NBL fan will be upset if the ball ends up in your hands on Bryce Island too much. It's fun to watch. I'm sure it's fun to be in.
Yeah, I mean, the faster the pace, it works for me and guys my size. We get to utilize our athleticism and quickness, so that's beneficial for guys like us. So I'm not complaining about that. And then just probably the last, 5 seasons or so, the amount of players or the type of players that we get in this league, it's amazing. And I've been on record saying, I feel talent-wise and skill-wise, this era is the most talented the NBL has ever had. And it's a joy to be a part of that and play against guys like this night in, night out. Like, we're speaking on Montrezl, but we just had a guy sign, and, he was an NBA Sixth Man of the Year not too long ago. So it's a joy to play in this league.
The Adelaide 36ers take on the Phoenix tomorrow night to kick off round 3. And Adelaide just came back from a tough loss in Cairns. And Mike Wells was kind of talking about how tough the road trip is to Cairns. And I've gone on record, Bryce, to say that I think it's the hardest road trip. For me, it's obviously unique to be in Perth. It's a lot longer flight, but it's something about the humidity in Cairns, because I like to walk in to get coffee. A lot of players do that. They come out sluggish. So let's ask the great, what is the toughest road trip for you, or the toughest place to play?
So for me, I would say the toughest road trip would probably be New Zealand, just because coming from Perth, there's such a big time difference. And there's been a few times where we fly or land in New Zealand, and I think it's like 1 a.m. and, you got to be up quick the next morning. Like, that's hard on the body, just because, like, even though it's 1 a.m. in New Zealand, it's like 8 o'clock or whatever in Perth time. So you're still not tired. So you're probably not sleeping for a few more hours. So that one's probably the toughest from a travel standpoint. And then from an arena, I'd probably go. Actually, I'll probably stick with New Zealand. New Zealand goes hard for their fans. So all across the board, New Zealand's difficult. But contrary to you, I love Cairns, man. Like, I love the trip there. I love the humidity. Because, when you walk into the gym, it's humid. Of course, I stretch, but, like, you don't really need to. Like, it's so warm in there, so it's easy to get going and to stay loose. So I love a hot gym.
Well, that's good to know. I think I've called some of your big games in Cairns, and that makes a lot of sense, because it took me a lot of warm-ups by the time I hit the floor. Let's talk about Friday night's blockbuster, because anytime you see Melbourne United coming up against the Perth Wildcats, it means it's going to come down to the wire. It's going to be a battle. You don't get any time to rest, because you go from battling ball qual for 40 minutes to Shea Ili and Matthew Dellavedova all up in your grill. What do you like about these kind of matchups against Melbourne United that just bring the best out of both teams?
The same thing, just the caliber of players that you're playing against and knowing the challenge. Like, very rarely, as many times as we've played Melbourne, on either side of the coin is it a blowout. Every game is close. It comes down to the wire. So it's fun battling like that. And, when you see these same faces year in, year out, a mutual respect is, drawn between, both sides. But it's fun battling against them. But you got to make sure you got your energy right.
You spoke to me a little bit at the Blitz about a guy like Bullquall, who he's very physical as a defender, and that's the popcorn. Everybody gets their popcorn to watch. One of the greatest we've ever seen on one end go against someone who's making their name in that regard on the defensive end in Bullquall. Mm-hmm. Those matchups against Bullquall, against Shea Ili, who is going to be tough. Why do you enjoy them the most?
Don't put words in my mouth. I didn't say I enjoy it the most. But no, I just enjoy it because at the end of the day, one, they're terrific defenders in themselves, like just individually, but also they have great team concepts as well that, challenge me, my ability to think the game as well, because it's not all about scoring. So even if you get past somebody that's a great defender, you still probably got two guys that's coming to help as well. So you still have to make sure you make the right pass at the right time and things of that sort. So challenges like that, kind of give me the measuring stick to let me know if I'm still growing as a player.
Bryce Cotton, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening. NBL Round 3 kicks off tomorrow night, Adelaide and the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. We'll catch you then.